and welcome to the show. We start today briefly with a Mazda MX-5. You may never have driven this car in Forza 5, but you can probably guess what it's going to be like just from looking at it. Even if you didn't know what an MX-5 was, you look at the car, you look at the styling, you look at the size, and you can probably come to the conclusions of how this vehicle are going to drive, and you'd probably be right. It's a small car, which is probably going to be light, probably going to have a small engine, probably be pretty good handling, but sort of lack overall straight line speed. Whereas if you look at a Ford Mustang, this is the Shelby GT500 version, you will also probably be able to form some conclusions on how this vehicle is going to drive from sort of the large muscular body and the fact that there is a huge amount of space for an engine, probably going to have a very big engine. Yeah, you can kind of come to some form of conclusions about a car before you ever drive it, especially when you throw in some figures. For example, the Shelby, 662 horsepower, which is quite a lot in a car. It also weighs near enough 3,900 pounds, which means it's probably not going to be the best handling, and with all that power, it'll probably be fairly leery. There are some exceptions to this, though, and this is surprisingly one of them. This is the Ferrari F12, and to look at, it's a slightly odd looking thing. From the front, I think this is a gorgeous car. It's a really very, very good looking car from the front, and I applaud Ferrari for being one of the few manufacturers who is actually still being creative with their vehicles, whereas Aston Martin, Lamborghini, Porsche all create fairly similar looking vehicles every time they bring out a new model, and I am sad to say even Lamborghini in that sentence. Ferraris are at least trying to be unique with each of their cars. Unfortunately, Ferrari do seem to have forgotten how to make the back of a car, as this and the LaFerrari both look strange from the back of them. For the front, this car is excellent. The back, it goes a little bit weird. But yeah, this certainly doesn't scream race car about it. This is more of a Grand Tourer, and I believe it was built to replace the 599. When we start looking at some statistics as well, it doesn't fill me with confidence. 730 horsepower in this car, and it's a car that weighs 3,600 pounds. It is a car that Jeremy Clarkson said had too much power when he reviewed it on Top Gear. These things combined do not fill me with a sense of confidence as to how this vehicle is going to drive. I was expecting it to be rather uncontrollable, really. I was expecting it to be very heavy and not be a particularly good car to drive. Sort of feel heavy in the corner. Sometimes you get that with some of the bigger Ferraris, the 612 and the 599. Can sometimes feel a bit heavy, a little bit sluggish. But this doesn't. This is a very strange car. Now, on Forza 5, in general, in case you haven't played this game, cars have a lot less grip on the most, but almost everything has less grip. So cars like to slide around a lot more. And I was expecting when, you try and put down 730 horsepower from this car onto the road, I was expecting it to be sideways everywhere. Yes, it will go sideways if you are a little bit too brave, or in my case there, I just had a weird on the grass slightly. The thing is, this car is amazingly controllable. Like, really surprisingly controllable. I've driven cars with far less power and far less torque than this, and had an awful lot more problems. This has quite a lot of grip. You can put all of that power down with, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it's certainly not the hardest car in the game to drive. You can use quite a lot of that power without fear of instant death, which really, really surprised me. Like, I really can't believe how well this car handles all of its power. I've had a modified one of these running 1,000 horsepower or nearly 1,000 horsepower, and even that could put the power down with nowhere near as bad as some vehicles that are running like 500. This is a really very, very good car. It confuses me how this car could have so much grip and be able to put the power down so well. It does feel a little bit heavy. You can't really escape the fact that this isn't really a sort of a true proper racing Ferrari. It is more of a Grand Tourer, but it does still handle relatively well. It's relatively planted. You don't get very much understeer at all. Yes, if you are a little bit too eager on the throttle, you will get oversteer, but on the most part it is very, very good through the corners. And I can't believe I'm going to say it, but despite all of the power and all of the fantastic noise, it's a consistent car. You can come up to a corner, you can turn in, and you know what it's going to do. You know just about where the line is with this car, of what you can get away with and what you can't. And every time you take a corner, it will be reliable. It's weird. I was not expecting any of that from this car. I was expecting it to be somewhat of a TVR, in that it will try and kill you every time you go near the throttle, and it likes to visit walls and grass and sand, etc. But it really is a surprisingly good car. Now, the only downside of all of that is this car costs 380,000 credits, which is quite a lot for a mid-class A car, and that also puts it rather close to another rather more iconic Ferrari, and that would be the Ferrari F40. Yes, for 30,000 more credits you can have one of these, and me and many other people will tell you this is probably one of the greatest supercars in the world. The F40 is a phenomenal piece of engineering. It really is an exceptional car, this one. I think it looks fantastic. It's pretty much a car that was built with absolutely no compromises. This car is about going fast around a track, and that is it. You've all heard the stories of how the paint is so thin you can see the carbon fibre through it, and all of that kind of thing. This car is built to be fast. No, it is not going to be as comfortable on a long journey as the F12. I'm fairly sure of that. You can see in the interior, yes, everything is just bare carbon fibre near enough. It is not at all luxurious in pretty much any way. What that means is this car weighs 2,900 pounds, so 600 pounds lighter than the F12, which is fairly significant. Ignore the slight damage on the front bumper. Apparently F40s have somewhat weak bodywork. I hit a cone. That's what the game decided would make that damage on the... I don't know. Don't ask. Yeah, it's just a thing that happened. Yeah, this car is quite a lot lighter than the F12, but of course it doesn't have as much power. Only has, and I say only has, 478 horsepower. However, this car is even better to drive through the corners. Now, in case you don't watch our videos regularly, when it comes to cars, I like a car that is planted. I do not want the back end of a car sliding out on me. I don't want that to be doing that. If the back of the car is sliding around, I'm losing time. This car is incredibly planted. It is very, very hard to get the back end of this car sliding, much like my beloved ACR Viper. In fact, there's quite a lot of similarity between this and the ACR Viper. The back end of this car will not step out unless you are really, really trying to make it do that. Every car in Forza, because there is a lot less grip, almost every car in Forza, even the ACR Viper, you will get sliding if you are really, really pushing and really, really trying to make it. But on the whole, this car is incredibly consistent. The back end will stay planted on the road almost all of the time. Now the flip side of this is that when you have a car that does that, chances are you are going to be getting a bit of understeer. The ACR Viper does it, and exactly the same can be said about this car. If you are not expecting it, the understeer will probably surprise you in this car. It is quite an understeery vehicle, but I will take that trade, and having the back of the car staying on the track all the time, I will take that trade. I can deal with the understeer, so I'm perfectly happy to deal with that, and this car is very, very nice to drive. The brakes are also incredibly good. A lot of that I think is down to the weight when we compare this to the F12. This will stop a hell of a lot quicker than the F12 will, but I would imagine quite a lot of that is down to the fact that, yeah, this car is quite a bit lighter. It's not surprising though that this car is rather good around a track, as this is built to be a race car. The F12 is built to be a Grand Tourer, but when it does come to a track, yeah, this F40 is really rather good. What happens though if we put these two cars together? There is some, I think it's 23, 25, I'm not even sure, years between the two of these. What happens when they go racing? Well, off the line, surprisingly, the F40 is the quicker. Despite the fact the F12 has a quoted 0 to 60 time of 3.1 seconds, the F40 0 to 60 is 3.6. The F40 is quite a bit quicker off the line, and we'll get to the first corner first. We tried this a few times, and every single time the results were exactly the same. And I think it is just down to the fact that the F12 sits there and spins its wheels. We are running both these cars without any assists on. I'm racing against Daniel, who unfortunately couldn't join for the video recording because he's been rather ill. So yeah, no matter what we did, I could not launch the F12 as quick as the F40. Because I guess it's just to do with the huge amounts of power that come from the F12 and the more torques and everything. It just sits there and spins its wheels. But as you can see, Daniel really wasn't losing the F12. Now, again, in case you are new here, me and Daniel are incredibly evenly matched drivers. We are very, very evenly matched in driver skill, so this should be a relatively fair comparison. I had a big dive into the hairpin and managed to take the lead. I was just struggling for grip. With the F12, you struggle to put the power down because if you put a little bit too much power down, of course, the back end is going to start stepping out. In the F40, you start putting a little bit too much power down and the chances are you're going to start understeering. So through the corners, these cars were actually fairly even on the most part. Daniel was having a bit more oversteering moments with the F40 than I was when I was doing the initial filming. And then we come onto a long straight, and at Catalunya we do have a very long straight. This is the one place where the F12 is superior. It is faster in a straight line, and as you can see, I've pulled fairly clear of the F40 by the time we come into the first corner, but under braking, the F40 can pull a lot of that gap back because it can brake a fair bit later than the F12, and Daniel held it around the outside of turn 1 and got the position back and then promptly starts understeering, and I can keep up with him through the next corner. I can't really overtake, but I can hold station right behind him as we come into the next corner. Again, the F40 is just getting a little bit of understeer. Ignore the tyre smoke. That's just a slightly laggy replay. This thing Forza 5 does from time to time. This next corner, I think I was perhaps a little better into that corner than Daniel was, as I was making ground where I perhaps shouldn't have been, or making up a little bit more ground than perhaps I should have been. With the F12, we come up towards the next corner, and the F40 is just understeering a little tiny bit, and then things are very close. Can't really do much about overtaking in this corner. The F40 is better handling, apart from Daniel has messed it up. Wasn't expecting to have a look up the inside there, but Daniel ended up running wide. We are side by side, and I can out-drag him down this back straight. But going around the outside of the better handling car in a tight hairpin is never going to happen. I tried to do a cutback, get back to the inside, but I couldn't really do very much. The F40 is just that little bit better on the handling front. Again, some slight understeer coming from Daniel's car, but I can't do anything about it. I can't put enough power down to get up the inside because I'll just spin the wheels and I'll get oversteer. So you have to be quite patient in the F12 as we come through the final chicane. The F40 has a wheel on the grass, and I can have a dive up the inside around the final corner, and then it is a drag race down the main straight, which the F12 is always going to win pretty much. Up towards the first corner though, I needed to make sure I had a big enough gap back to the F40 so that he wouldn't instantly overtake me, and this time round I had got the space just about as we come into turn 1, but through these next corners the F40, if Daniel doesn't have any understeer, could catch up, and sure enough, after a couple of laps, things remained very, very close between the two of us. These two cars at Catalunya are phenomenally evenly matched. Daniel had a bit of again, Daniel was having a bit of problem putting a wheel on the grass there and it dragging the car wide. I got huge oversteer through the final corner, which wasn't particularly helpful, and the F40 finds itself in the lead, and we go back to this same situation. I can just about keep up with the F40 through the corners. You really have to work the F12 hard though to keep up through these corners. It's just not quite as composed, and it's not surprising it's not quite as composed. It's considerably heavier than the F40, and it's not designed to be as fast around a track. Well, it is designed to be fast around a track, don't get me wrong, but the F40's sole purpose was to be a quick race car. Whereas the F12 was designed with a little bit more luxury, a little bit more comfort in mind as well. So yeah, it's not surprising I'm having a difficult time fighting away past the F40, but they are closer. The F12 did a remarkably good job. Did better than I thought it might in keeping up. Daniel, I'm not sure quite why Daniel gave me so much space. I don't know if he thought I was alongside him or not. Either way, I had a cheeky look at an overtake, and then through the next corner, Daniel tried to get back past and just ended up running a little bit wide. And as we came towards the final couple of laps of this race, I had the lead Not a particularly big lead though. At no point did either of us have a massive lead. As you can see, that's not a particularly large margin. As we came on towards the final lap of the race, the F40 was still right behind me. I thought I had enough space on this one, didn't bother going defensive. There was a huge lunge from the F40 into turn 1. I'm still not sure how Daniel stopped that car. I felt like when I saw him have that lunge, I thought, oh, he's going to miss turn 1 and I'll just be able to get the position back fairly easily. But no, he managed to stop it. He then had a very big slide through turn 3. That's a new way of defending. Go sideways and cover half the track so the car behind can't overtake. I'm not sure it's a particularly good way of defending, but it worked on that occasion. I just had absolutely nowhere to go. Again, through these next corners, things are all still very close. I get brave and have a big lunge. Thankfully, Daniel saw me coming, and that wasn't exactly intentional. I was braking a fair bit later, I think, than the F40, and I realised I wasn't quite going to stop, so I sort of had to throw my car up the inside. And I now have the lead, but through these next corners, Daniel had got the hang of the F40, he'd got the hang of the understeer. A little bit of lag, unfortunately, on the run up the hill, slightly screwed up the F40 there, but once you go around the top of the hill, you can just carry more speed through there. But we come to another sort of small straight, and I can pull out a bit of a lead. I can get just a little bit of a safety margin by the time we come to the hairpin. F40's trying to go around the outside, changes mind, cut back to the inside. I don't really care if he's on the inside for this next section, because that corner there, fine, but it's this one where the overtaking will happen, and it's a long way to go around the outside through there, and I can keep hold of the position. Again, it's another big lunge from the F40, can't quite stop it in time and has to back out of it. Then things get a little bit crazy. We try to go too wide through the final chicane, which never really works. It looks like Daniel's got the move done. Unfortunately, yet again, he put a wheel on the grass and that dragged the F40 into the sandpit. So it's going to be a victory for the F12, but a very, very closely fought battle, this one. It was really rather excellent fun. Anyway, it is time to hand the cars over to our tame racing driver. It's been ages since he has had a go in any vehicles. We're going to see how these two compare at the Top Gear test track. Off the line, we saw which one is going to be faster. The F40 is going to get to the first corner first because it just has that better launch. It can use its power, it can put its power down. And sure enough, as they exit the first corner, the F40 is marginally ahead, but it is not by very much at all. They come around Chicago, and still things are relatively close at this point. There's even a little bit of a slide from the F40. Now we've got a fairly one of the longest straights on the Top Gear track towards the Hammerhead, and things are still remarkably close. They are pretty much neck and neck. The F12's brought the gap back just a little tiny bit as they go through Hammerhead, and then the F40 just starts to stretch its lead a little bit on the exit. It can just get that power down a little bit better than the F12 can. It's quite bumpy on the exit of Hammerhead, and the F12 struggled to put its power down there. And then through the follow through, this is where you can really see where the F40 extends its gap. The F12 is sideways past the tyre wall. That's pretty high speed through there. I'm not quite sure what speed our driver was doing. I would imagine it's in the 120s, 130s through that corner. The F12 was sideways. Not conducive for speed necessarily. The F12 just can't handle the fast corners the same way the F40 can. So onto the tyres, we saw the F40 was the quicker of the two, and sure enough, it's at a 1:16.4. That's actually not that bad a time when you consider the class of car it is. Yes, it's a second below an Aventador, but an Aventador is literally the maximum PI A-class car, whereas the F40 is a mid A-class car. That's a respectable time there from the F40. The F12, just over half a second slower. It does beat out some other competition though. It goes quicker than the rough Yellowbird and an Audi R8. The F12 really is quite a good car. It genuinely is fast. Interestingly, when I did that little review footage of the F12 and the F40 at Catalunya, I drove both the cars there for about 5 laps for that. The cars set nearly identical lap times at Catalunya. Literally, they're down to about 0.1 of a second difference between the two of them. The Top Gear track just favours the F40. There is no long straights for the F12 to really make the time back up on. Out of the two cars, which one would I have? Well, I would have the F40. There is pretty much no competition between it. There are very few cars I would have before an F40. The F40 is a phenomenal racing vehicle, a phenomenal car to drive. Yes, it won't be as comfortable, but quite frankly, I wouldn't care. Yeah, I really do like the F40. I'm sure many people would have the F40 over the F12, but don't get me wrong. The F12 is a very good car. It surprised me how nice that car is to drive. It really is. Like, okay, F12 is not designed necessarily for racetracks as much as the F40 was, and in Forza the only thing you can do is race on tracks. But yeah, the F12 is really much better handling than I expected. Both these cars sound absolutely fantastic. Yeah, F12, not a bad car. But out of the two, it would have to be the F40. And over the course of a lap, unless it is a very long track with a lot of straights, the F40 is probably going to be a little bit faster, I think, out of the two. Maybe on a few locations, somewhere like Road America, perhaps the F12 would have a bit of an advantage. But on most circuits, I think the F40 would be a little bit quicker. It is, though, phenomenally close between the two of these. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys, so thank you very much for watching. If you have some other old versus new rivalries you would like to see us do, then please do leave them in the comments section. I'll have a look through, and maybe they shall be done in the future. However, until next time, goodbye.